Hi everyone, in this lesson I'll teach you how to make your drums really swing, but also at the same time how do you use one-shot samples which are royalty free and free to download themselves into the system on Logic and make it something that you can actually play around with and make your own melody or rhythm with. So in this example, unfortunately I have to mute the Kanye Sunday Service choir portion melody of this beat. I'm just doing this as like an exercise, but for copyright purposes, I won't be able to show you the exact beat with the choir embedded as well. But here I will show you first how do you normally take a one-shot sample from, let's say, an online source and then download it, and then drag in the MP3 and then make it so that it's something that you can play around with, like I said before, into your own melody, in this case, the bass. Here, the bass is called Reese, number 9. And what you do here is that you can right-click, and then you choose Convert to New Sample Track. You can name it whatever you want, so I'll just keep it as Reese number 9 for this case, in this case. And you have to find it. Sometimes it just jumps around a little bit on your your dashboard. But okay, so it's right here. Right, so if I play this note, which is probably going to be a C1, it'll just sound like this. Okay, so actually, sometimes these samples won't sound like it wouldn't have the note of a C. So you have to use it like a tuner pitch, like myself, who does not recognize notes because I'm a drummer and I don't really have any musical theory, or I don't know how to read any, melodic scale notes or whatever. I use a tuner pitch app to identify and to make sure that the note is the correct one. And then, I just play it, and then so that, let's say if the note is not a C, but, the logic says it so that it will always be C when you first drag the sample into Logic. So if you play this one right here, it won't have any sound. So what you do is that you can click on sample right here, and once this loads up, hopefully it loads up quick. Okay, there we go. You can go into zone to see if you want to make any changes first, if that's pertainable to your taste. Let's say if you want to make this like a fade in, whatever, fade out. I'll just keep it as the way it is for this example. You can go to mapping, and then you want to change your root key right here as the actual note you hear from the original sample. So in this case, it will actually just be C because that's the note itself. So I'm lucky that I don't have to change it. But you would want to make sure that your root key is what you hear in the sample. Then you can go into here, because this is a bass and you want to have more than one note, right? You can change this. You can just double click on it and then change whatever you want. So I can change to C0, make it lower so that it can cover this range, and I want to also go to C3. So if you go back to this keyboard here, this is the original sound. I can go octave higher, go octave lower. I don't think you can hear that. Or even higher. And then you can have all the in-between sounds as well. Right, so you have all these options now open up for you once you open up this kind of range. This is what a range is. It kind of shows you here as well. There's some other manipulations you can use with the modulators, the mod matrix, and the synth, etc. But I won't cover those things in this video. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this because I already actually have this, which is the bass right here. If you see it, this is the exact same thing. So I'll delete this just for the sake of simplicity and that you're not lost with what's shown on the screen here. But okay, I must delete these two. I don't know why these are here. Okay. So now we have that in place. We have all the notes lined up and stuff like that. You can just play like you normally do. So whatever melody comes to your mind, you can play it and then hopefully make something that you like. And in this case, this is what I made from that bass. Okay, sorry, I just realized I did not include the whole thing, but this is what it sounds like. I kind of wanted, that kind of higher octave sound, which is why I, like I said before, I increase the range so that it won't just be, let's say, like in the C1 octave. It'll be like a C3 octave or a C2 octave. With that being said, let's talk about the drums. So for the drums, it'll be the exact same procedure as how you would normally do it with like a one-shot sample. If you use it for a drum sample, and it's a one-shot, it'll be the same procedure as what I just showed you before for the bass. But obviously, you probably wouldn't need to do as many adjustments for the notes, the root keys, and also the other melodic aspect of what I just demonstrated for you when you extract and put in a one-shot sample into Logic. So I'll show you how I made it bouncy in this case, so that it makes it so that it's more personable to how you want the feel to be like. And in this case, I actually found this Kanye Sunday Choir melody to be very bouncy, and I want the drums to sound a bit more authentic. By authentic, I mean it's not electronic, but sounding like it's played live or maybe by a human. If I'm being honest, because I didn't really mix or master any of this yet, it doesn't really sound live at all. It definitely sounds a lot more human though than, let's say, something you hear on the radio. And how I did this is that, I mean, in this case, for me to kind of have the bounce first, I use a 1/16th triplet approach to this. And I had a double hi-hats for this case. I'll talk about why I doubled it later in a second, but I'll play each one individually so you have a sense of how these two different hi-hats differ in their sound. So this is the first one, the first hi-hat, which is a higher pitched. Okay, and then here's the second one. It's the exact same notes that I'm hitting. But if you click it open and you see the piano roll, you can actually see that it's different colored. And this means that they are hit with different velocities. So it means that that the note diverges in its volume because of how hard, quote unquote, we hit it using this kind of MIDI logic tool called random velocity. So what you do normally is that you will play the whole, however long your thing is, the whole measure of, in this case, the hi-hat rhythm. I selected all of them and I went to functions, MIDI transform, and then random velocity. That's how you do it. When you click this open, usually, I don't know why it's not showing it here, but you can have a different selection of, let's say if you want to go from 0 to 127, you can do that. You can input it here, so that it shows the wide range of velocities you can work with. You can also do select only, operate only, or select and operate to make sure that you have the right notes that you want to have the velocity change with, to correlate with what you want. So that's why it sounds a little bit, when it's together. And the reason why I had these two different hi-hats together is because I want them to have like a damp feeling on the end, which is this second hi-hat, to couple it with the first hi-hat, which is a bit more crispier. And have them together is what I wanted as like a simple sound design tip, is that you can layer two instruments that serve the same purpose in your music to make it sound something that you want ideally. So when it's together combined, this is what it sounds like with the random velocity tool. Okay. Now we can have the kicks, which is also under the same quantized 1/16th triplet form. And I add some perks, to kind of fill in the spaces in between. A general rule of thumb for me is that when I look at, here, you can kind of see where all the different notes are in the measure. And I kind of see, oh, here's a gap for the kick, so maybe I can add, a quick perk or percussion here, and same thing here. Same thing with the second perk. With this, I believe this is the counter snare, I just make sure that they don't always clash. And also the snare itself, which is, on 2 and 4. So if I just play all the drums together, I think that's all the drums. Without the bass, this is what it sounds like. Right, so it sounds kind of groovy. If you use 1/16th triplets for the hi-hats especially, and also the kicks as well. And then later on I added the bass, which is the one that I just showed you earlier in this video, on how you can use an online a one-shot sample into Logic, and how do you manipulate it so that it had different sounds that you can play around with. So I also added a 808 from my previous one-shot library. I basically, again, I layer these two together. I made sure that this sounds a bit more, sounds stronger in the mix than the 808, hence the difference in volume. But also, just to preface this, none of this is actually, mixed or mastered yet. It's just like a very kind of brief, quick, starting phase to how I make my music. So this was nowhere near the final product. So if you do see some clipping here and other, not very clear sounding elements to my music, it's not because I am not aware of them. It's just that I am not quite there yet in the producing process. But if you have everything together, this is what it will sound like. Right? And obviously for these different perks, I added some quick, like, I don't even know what they're called, percussive, instruments that kind of adds a bit more feel to it. So you can see here, this counter snare actually has a 1/16 triplet as well, and as do this one as well, this perk. I believe this is the tambourine sound you can hear in between, the crispier metal cymbal sound, to basically vary it up a little bit. And I actually also added some of the vocal vox effects, just to make it a bit more conversational. I just added it for fun, nothing too pertinent to the overall feel of the beat, but it's just an accessory at the end. Right, so to start the speed, I did the same thing. I used one of the vocal vox, it's just like what you heard here, the haze, the ha's, whatever. I used the ho here to start it off, and then added some, echoey feeling to it, some chroma reverb and reverb, just to make it like a pretty simple, effective, and also cool introduction to the beat that's to come. So I'll play the whole thing together, and that'll be this lesson here.